The manager forbade me from using the panic button, which left me with no safety net and struggling with my ADHD while working night shifts at a gloomy hotel. I work as a night auditor at a hotel, which mainly involves sitting back and watching the security footage, printing documents for the accountant, and helping guests who arrive late at night. My hours are from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and I'm usually the only person in the building by 7 a.m., except for the security guard, who only shows up when he's on shift. The job is a breeze for me. As I have multiple disabilities, getting up on time is very difficult for me, and sometimes even being able to get to work on time is a problem. Even at work, I often have trouble keeping up with the work because I don't have to worry about oversleeping because I start work late. And I don't have to worry about being overwhelmed because my job is just printing out some documents and providing general customer service. My previous manager encouraged me to bring a switch into the workplace because the work could become very boring, and she made it clear that as long as I didn't disturb the guests, arrived on time, and got the work done, it didn't matter what I did. She also mentioned that there was a bell for the chef in the restaurant area, which I could put at the front desk so that guests could easily alert me if they needed help. Working at the back, she left about a month ago, and our new front desk manager was recruited from outside. She sent the first message to the whole team about a week ago, 70% of which was about lamb chops. Anyone using the bell will be written up. I see my sign that says please ring for service, and it says anyone using the bell will be written up. I have severe ADHD, which is a big part of the typical problems I have with my job. Not always looking at the camera, not being 100% sure when guests arrive at the front desk, although I want to improve this with medication. The waiting list is 1.5 years long just for assessment, and I just got approved for company health insurance, which is still far away for me. Maybe this is silly, but that bell has helped me a lot with my job performance. It is very unique and lets me know immediately that I need to get up and help someone. I haven't told my manager about my disability, but I wrote to tell her that the bell is very useful to me. Besides, if I don't have a bell for people to ring when customers arrive, things really only have 3 possible outcomes. The customer waits for me to check the reception camera again, which can take a while because of the memory problem again. The customer walks into the staff-only area to find me, which inevitably scares because it's so unprofessional. The customer shouts, "Hello," to try and get someone's attention. None of these situations are ideal for me. There seems to be a simpler solution, which is to simply provide customers with a way to politely notify me, such as giving them a bell to ring. However, my manager has made it clear that this is simply not going to happen. I really don't want to get written up, and I'm completely out of sight of the security cameras as long as I'm just sitting at the front desk. Furthermore, the front desk is directly in front of a huge window, and since we're in the seedy part of town, I'm sure someone will come in and sexually harass me, which has happened before. I just want to keep this stupid bell. I don't see why this should be a big deal if it helps me work more easily, but I don't know how to explain to the manager that a bell I bought on Amazon for $5 is a valid disability aid for me without looking stupid. Update 1. I may have just dug myself into a hole. I really need this job. I spend most of my time doing, and I'm just so lucky to get paid. My previous manager was great. She taught me how to get everything done quickly. She actively encouraged me to bring my laptop to work or play video games during my breaks, because otherwise I would get bored and start banging my head against the wall. She also told me that I could use the bell in the kitchen to put in front of the reception so that guests could attract my attention. This was a godsend for someone with ADHD like me. I specifically asked guests to ring the bell for me late at night. After just 2 shifts, she said she believed I could manage on my own, and I have been working alone ever since, with only the security guard nearby. In September, she went to work elsewhere, and everyone was sad, but of course we all wished her the best. The front desk reports directly to the general manager, and after about 2 months, the general manager became slower and slower to respond to messages and phone calls. One time, a guest found me to complain that their car had been stolen from our parking lot, and although she was told that she would have the opportunity to discuss the matter with the general manager, she never showed up. I immediately sent an email to the general manager, furious at her lack of response to our guest, and after I had repeatedly called her over the past 2 weeks without getting a response. I told her that she had to come in that day to discuss things with our guest, as the guest was checking out the next morning, and I wanted to know what had happened during my shift and what I should do. I received no response, and she did not arrive at the hotel that day, so I sent an email to HR saying that I had been unable to get in touch with her and needed help as soon as possible. Fortunately, this prompted the general manager to start moving, and the situation was dealt with, although I was ultimately not given an update. About a month and a half ago, we welcomed a new front office manager, whom I will call her introducer, and she impressed all of us. She gave her standard self-introduction, then immediately started complaining about the sign she saw with my name on it, which said, "Please ring the bell." She then lost control and said it was ridiculous and very unprofessional. She said she had thrown the sign away, and if she saw another like it, she would take disciplinary action against the person who posted it. In addition, the keyboard of the computer in the back office was taken, which prevented other people from using the computer. This is of course a very unfriendly approach to new employees, and to me it is a complete power trip. It is normal to see bells in hotels, but leaving that aside, it was definitely a game changer for my disability. I have very poor eyesight and can forget to check the camera for long periods of time, and the bell is a great way to immediately distract me from what I am doing and head to the front desk immediately. I decided that if I told MEM it was my disability, she would definitely understand. So I left her a note clarifying that I had obviously not told her the details of my disability, just that I could easily forget, and that I was in the back of the office, and that I really wanted to use the computer in the back of the office. M said that was fine, and that I was not allowed to use the bell. I reminded her that as a disabled employee I was entitled to reasonable accommodation, but she dismissed this. She asked for proof of my disability or to go to GM, and she also skillfully avoided any requests from me, such as asking where the keyboard was or if we could still use the office computer, and she said that if I couldn't concentrate, I should eliminate distractions. Hearing this advice made me very frustrated, not only because I didn't want to take unwarranted advice on how to manage my condition, but also because I knew that my disease was not like that. Maybe I should take a step back. I sent an email to the general manager explaining that I like to use the bell as a preferable alternative to having guests enter the staff-only area to get my attention, and that I would like this to be clearly stated as a disability aid. I also mentioned that I did not want to hear comments from him about how I should deal with my disability, as she is in no position to do so. The general manager seemed to respond in a very harsh tone, demanding to know why I was not at the front desk and why I did not check the camera. The bell had never been allowed to be used, and I was breaking the rules by using it. The worst part was that she demanded to know why I had not mentioned my disability during the interview. This was shocking. Unless a disability prevents an employee from performing the duties of the job, no employee is required to disclose their disability to an employer before being offered the job. As a manager, she should know this. I reiterated that I was not required to disclose my disability at any time before I made a request for accommodation, which meant that I sometimes forgot to check the camera, which was out of my control. Furthermore, I emphasized that I was never told that I was required to be at the front desk throughout the entire shift. This has never happened, and I have never worked overnight shifts with anyone else. I also CC HR to ensure that they hear all this. HR responded that if I wanted to be accommodated, I would need a doctor's note, although they did not mention the GMS out-of-pocket requirement, wondering why I had not disclosed my disability. General denied that she had ever asked me to disclose my disability, despite the fact that I had an email from our chain of response a few days earlier. She said that I should respect M's authority because she had many years of experience in the industry. This is not something I have never denied, and I was required to be at the front desk for the entire shift. Furthermore, she said that M claimed that I had connected my laptop to my work monitor to play video games. This allegation is completely unfounded, and the reason I brought my laptop to work is to play games, which the previous management clearly told me was allowed. I explained this to her and stressed that I was unhappy with her approach, as she had taken it upon herself to offer me advice on how to manage my medical condition. She is in no position to give me advice on how to manage my medical condition, which is irrelevant to this matter. I also stress that it is very strange that she has never mentioned this supposed workplace custom to me before, considering that M has always stressed that she is the manager of Bactilda. I expect her to discuss any issues related to my work performance directly with me, as is normal practice. However, I have not received a response to this email, and it is now 3 weeks since I sent it. To be honest, I don't know what to do now. Should I get a doctor to certify that I am disabled? Should I go after that stupid bell that caused all this? I still want my bell back, but it's not worth losing my job. Update. 2 long stories in short. I like using the bell because it is an effective disability aid, and I was initially encouraged to use it. The new management came in and said that disciplinary action would be taken if it was found to be used again. I told her it was a disability aid and she didn't care. I took the issue up with my general manager, who started questioning me about why I hadn't disclosed my disability during the interview. Of course, legally speaking, she had no right to ask that question. There was no obligation to disclose, and she was not allowed to ask me to do so during the interview. I explained this to the said HR in my response, but to no avail. In the end, the matter was dropped, although I still haven't got my bell back. But apparently my email triggered a small investigation into the general manager's conduct, and the company started asking around. It turned out that our hotel hardly conformed to company policy anywhere, and that a bonus that was supposed to be issued to the front desk staff as a result of a positive review was never actually paid out to the staff. According to one of my colleagues, the general manager had to be escorted out of the building. I spoke to a new acting general manager about everything. He said he was happy to see me because he had read many positive reviews that mentioned my name. He intends to groom me for a step-by-step promotion to management and asked me to elaborate on how to streamline the work, as he also plans to implement many changes. My favorite part is that my bell has been returned. I can't leave because my health insurance is through my job, and I'm currently experiencing a lot of medical problems. But I've been asking other hotels managed by the same company what services they offer and whether I can continue to use my current doctor if I'm employed by them. When I went to work today, I thought I was going to get a lecture for taking sick leave last week, but instead I had a nice chat with my new manager, who went on and on about how charming I was. He's my new general manager, an absolute legend. He's still going through the company's induction and audit, correcting all the mistakes of the old regime, but he made it clear that he values his staff. I mean, who would have thought that a manager would thank the people who keep the hotel from falling into chaos and confusion? Thinking they didn't exist, I was very alarmed when he called me into his office a few days ago, as my brain had automatically assumed that being called in by the boss meant I was about to be fired or arrested, or both. Instead, he asked me to sit down and asked me what I thought about a promotion. Embarrassed, I must have looked like an idiot, because his smile confused me, and he continued, "I've been going through the records, talking to the staff, and you're reliable. You don't make a fuss when things go wrong, and seeing as you do care about this place, I'd like you to take on a management role." I still can't quite believe it, but someone in a position of power actually recognized my work and didn't just think I was a lazy gremlin hiding behind a desk for 8 hours a day. I mumbled, trying hard, that, yes, I would love to, but I'm kind of ADHD or something. He nodded as if he'd expected me to say that. "So what do you need? Restructuring, rescheduling, what would work for you?" I nearly fell out of my chair. For the first time in my entire career, my boss asked me what I needed, instead of treating me like the problem in their grand plan. I stuttered that I needed clear instructions, consistent schedules, and, of course, my bell. He grinned and said no problem. So now I'm officially in a management position, which is crazy, considering that just a few months ago I was on the verge of quitting because my previous manager lost his temper over a petty $5 issue. But things got even worse, as it turned out that the previous general manager had apparently pocketed the bonuses that were supposed to go to the staff. Yes, it's been an interesting journey of discovery at the company. The company is now making up the bonuses to all those who were cheated, including me. This morning, when I checked my bank account, I found an extra deposit of $3,000. $3,000. $3,000. just lying around in my account as if it were a birthday check that my rich uncle I've never met forgot to send. It's just too surreal. A few weeks ago, I got into a huge fight to keep a little metal piece that made a jingling sound, and now I've been promoted and received a windfall. It feels like I've entered another world. They stopped trying to destroy my soul. And the best part is, they bought me a new bell, bigger, louder, and shinier. They increased my disability benefit, and I almost cried when I got it. Update 4. Remember how I got promoted to management? Well, it hasn't officially changed yet, which means I'm in a weird position where I have more responsibility but the same salary as a night auditor. Okay, I guess HR just needs time to process everything. But then things got really weird. One night, I noticed that security guard Jay looked really tired. He pulled me aside and said, "Hey, something weird's been going on the H-cam." I immediately thought it was either another car theft or someone trying to break into the back office again. But no, oh no. This is something completely different. Apparently, the night before, a person in a hooded sweatshirt was caught on camera prowling around the employee-only area, but when the security guard checked in person, there was no one there. It was as if they checked right after they saw them on the monitor, but there was no one there. This happened several times, and the second before they were in the break room, they were gone in a blink of an eye. Jay swears that the camera is broken, and I'm mentally prepared for ghosts, skilled serial killers, or bored raccoons, which may have a strong Wi-Fi signal, so I pulled up the video. Sure enough, there was a figure in a dark hoodie walking around, just walking around, except they were moving strangely. They were walking so smoothly, almost unnaturally, like they were on a conveyor belt instead of walking. At this point, I was staring at the screen, completely overwhelmed. Jay came up to me and whispered, "This isn't the most creepy thing you've ever seen." I won't lie, I said half-jokingly, at least they didn't get my attention, but my mind was racing through every possible explanation. Someone sneaking around playing pranks, a glitch from the Matrix. Fast forward to the next night, I set up a little test, tweaking some of the surveillance cameras to cover more blind spots, just in case. Sure enough, at around 3 a.m., I caught movement. The person in the hoodie was back, but this time they didn't disappear, but instead turned to look directly at the camera. My mind went blank and I had a short circuit. The person didn't move, just stood there with their head tilted slightly, as if they knew I was watching. Then, as if that wasn't scary enough, they slowly raised one hand and waved it. I immediately turned off the monitor. I don't know what I was expecting, but this was just too much. I almost called the police, but what would I say? Yes, we have a mysterious invisible man who likes to haunt the security cameras. By the time I plucked up the courage to turn the screen back on, they had disappeared. Now I was stuck in the middle of this supernatural thriller, and I definitely wasn't part of it. Jay is convinced the hotel is haunted. I'm convinced it's either hackers interfering with our messages or someone who has managed to elude the security system in a disturbing way. Moving on to the second story. My husband abandoned me for the family at Christmas, so I returned their gifts, handed him the divorce papers, and broke him. I married my ex-husband M33 in 2018 when I was 31 years old. My in-laws never liked me and made it clear that SBX insisted they just put on a tough exterior and that they would gradually come to love me to prove how evil they were. Once, I attended their dinner and brought a cake, which I had made because I was brought up to be a polite guest. So I went into the kitchen and gave the cake to his mother as a thank you for inviting me. She took the plate to the trash and threw it in. When I returned the plate to me, I told my husband what she had done. He suddenly confronted her, and she claimed that she had grabbed the plate but hadn't held on to it properly, that I had let go too quickly, and that it had fallen to the floor, where it had, of course, had to be thrown away. My ex-husband confirmed what happened. My ex-husband owns his own business, and behind my back they called me a gold digger. Of course they insisted on suing, but I didn't care because I never thought my marriage would end. This could appease them and possibly make them finally treat me well. No, his business failed under the blow of the co, and we used his savings and my own savings to make ends meet. I refused to go into debt to keep our heads above water, so he closed the business in 2012. He suffered a severe depression from losing the business and unable to find a new job. He suggested we move to his hometown, closer to his family, so he would have a greater support network. Despite my strong objections, we moved. He wanted to work part-time while trying to revive his business. So, I became the primary breadwinner. Like most wives, I became the one responsible for buying gifts. The stupid thing is that only I thought buying those thoughtful, expensive gifts would eventually make them see that I wanted to be accepted by them. The gifts were for us, but obviously intended for my SBX. After spending every holiday with them, after a year I realized that everyone would become quiet if I tried to speak or join in the conversation, so I stopped speaking when I visited in early December. A few days later, they finalized their Christmas plans, and my SBX said his family had decided not to include me in the Christmas Eve dinner and Christmas lunch because I ruined the family atmosphere. I replied that it was fine, that we would do our own thing, and my ex-husband gave me a timid look and said he would still go. I was so angry and disappointed in him that I knew right then that my marriage was over. So I returned the gifts I had bought for my family. I bought Phil a pair of novelty business socks, Nil a bottle of supermarket brand shampoo, and bought the worst smelling perfume I could find in a discount store. The most expensive gift was a very large rawhide bone for Bill and his wife's chihuahua. The bone was so big that the chihuahua couldn't open its mouth wide enough to chew it, so it was useless. I had saved about $600, which I was going to use to put a deposit on a new apartment. My husband came home from Christmas lunch and told me that I had humiliated him and embarrassed him in front of his family. I asked him why he felt that I would do that to people who obviously didn't like me and didn't want me around. I received the divorce papers last week. I remember that he was supposed to become a millionaire, so we had that prop SBX not eligible to use any of my savings. He can't pay the rent or car insurance. It's not my problem anymore. Some of my friends and family are on my side and proud of me. Others say I'm being too cautious, which is really unlike me. Update. First, to those who asked how much security deposit I got for my new apartment, it's only the $600 I saved for gifts. This is of course not the case. I had to dip into my savings, but the $600 helped a lot. After I left, my ex didn't contact me until he received the divorce papers. My lawyer made it clear that we were exercising the protective order. Then he started sending me loving voice messages and text messages. For days, I didn't respond to his messages or those from his family, trying to convince me to come back to him. Eventually, he started sending me threatening and cruel voice messages and texts. Obviously, I gave in. My lawyer advised against blocking their messages so that we would have evidence of harassment, if needed, basically a rope to hang themselves with. But last night I got a call from my ex-boyfriend, which I stupidly answered, thinking it was an emergency. But he said the rent was a week late, and before I could even say, hello, he said it was strange because I had paid the rent 6 days ago. He paused, sighed, and then answered no. I reminded him that I didn't live there and that he shouldn't expect me to pay the rent. Hugh's parents both texted me to say that they were suing me for the rest of the rent. I'm not worried about my record getting evicted because the apartment is registered in his parents' names. When we first announced that we were moving to his hometown, they immediately rented an apartment for us to move into. They renewed the lease every year, and we had to pay his parents, who then wrote a check to the landlord, who had no idea who SBX and I were, much less that we lived there. Red flag. I know. I'm glad I have a few weeks to prepare to leave, because they may use the fact that it's their apartment to immediately evict me. Divorce from this man-child and his neurotic parents can be very rocky, and any advice from anyone who has been through it would be welcome.